Hey everyone, my name is Augie Schmidt and I am a top producing commercial real estate advisor here in Central Florida. I also own a company called CRE Academy that is designed to help people thrive in commercial real estate. And the purpose of this video today is to tell you how to value a piece of commercial real estate. So whether you are a broker, a property manager, investor, aspiring investor, no matter what it is, if you are interested in real estate, specifically commercial real estate, it is very important to understand how to value a piece of commercial property. Now this is much different from the residential side of the world because we don't have as many fancy tools and tricks to pull a list of comps within a neighborhood based on square footage where all the houses look exactly the same. But in commercial real estate, there are a lot of differences between properties that you're going to want to look at, and a lot of things that go into different types of assets that you all have to take into account when you are putting a value on it. So like I said, whether you are buying something for yourself, for somebody else, or advising somebody to sell a property and what their list price or asking price should be, this should be a great video for you to help you understand value and how to find that completely free using county property records. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start off on the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser, and if you don't know where Hillsborough County is, it's on the west coast of Florida. Many of you have heard of Tampa Bay, and this is the county that Tampa Bay is located in. So you're going to go to the County Property Appraiser website, and before you have the sales search function, and just so you know, all county property appraisers will look a little bit differently, but they all function the same, or at least they should. So there should be a mapping function to search properties. There should be a records locator such as this. This one has a sales search, which is very valuable if you're trying to find recent sales and value a piece of property. But before you start off on a sales search, you want to know the subject property that you are trying to value. So that is the first step, is to identify the property that you are trying to put a value on. So for this, we're going to go to their mapping system, and a lot of county property appraisers, it will be called a GIS map, and that stands for Geographic Information Systems, I believe. And you'll go to this map, and there's all different types of layers you can choose and things you can find out: zoning, market areas, some even have utilities, opportunity zones. But pretty much you'll want to zoom in, find the piece of property. You can also search it by address. And once you find a piece of property that you want to value, you can click on it and find out more information. So for our sales search function, one thing we need is the parcel number, which will be right here. And you can also dig into this and figure out a little bit more about the property. And I always recommend looking into a property and finding out as much as you can when trying to value it. It's best to put eyes on the property and know the market, know the neighborhood. However, you can get away by using Google Street View and doing research on the county property appraiser as we are doing so. So this is a warehouse property. So it looks like it's roughly 52,000 square feet. And say this is the property we're trying to value. We can see that it's a metal frame building, so it's a steel warehouse building. That's very important to know. We see the year it was built is 1964. It's got 20-foot ceilings, which depending on the asset class, and I have more videos about this coming soon, but if you are looking at a piece of retail property versus an industrial property, there's going to be different things that are attractive to the property. So for industrial properties, having a taller ceiling height is usually more attractive. So 20-foot wall height, that's a pretty good ceiling height. So that's something to account for, because if there's a building with a 12-foot ceiling height, then it might be less valuable to an industrial user. So you just kind of want to look at these things and take those into account. So as I mentioned, once we have our PIN number, we are going to then go back to the county property appraiser, and they have a sales search function, which is pretty handy. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that parcel number in there. And we'll say we want to search for properties within, we'll say 5 miles maybe. And then the property type, we're going to say it's a commercial/industrial. And then usually it will go and you can select the different type of use of the property. So usually when searching land uses, there's a multitude for the same building use, if that makes sense. So if there's an industrial property, you'll see here in a second that there might, they're called warehouse. They have like warehouse A, B, C, D, and that's all types of uses for zoning and future land use. But I always go and select as many as possible that I know this property would be considered. So when looking at warehouses, you see, warehouse distribution terminal. You see warehouse, let's see, A, B, C, D, and a warehouse department store, sure. So I know that, hey, these steel construction buildings can probably be in all these different types of land uses or zonings. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of those. Next up, we have our qualified and unqualified sales. Ideally, you always go with a qualified sale, and what that means is that it's verified. So some transactions might be between, family members, or it might have been a business sale where there was, a business involved or additional personal property involved, which means the sale price might have been inflated or deflated depending on the circumstance. So in this scenario, we want to look at qualified sales. And like I said, that means that it's an arm's length transaction, that there was nothing additional going on or taking away from the property that we don't know about. So that's what a qualified sale is. And then for sale date, depending on your market and the velocity of your market, usually you go back 18 to 24 months or so about, to see recent properties that have sold. So we will say January 1st. And I want to pull up a good amount of records here, so we will say 2019. And then we will use today's date, which is 9/1/2020. Cut that out. And then we will use today's date, which is 9/1/2022. And the sale price, I always like to put a floor of a sale price in here. So some records will show up for $100, and usually that's just if there was a modification to the deed or something happened and they needed to have something put on record. It'll be like a base sale price of $100. That does not mean this property sold for $100, but for this case, to remove all of those before we get to them, I like to put something like $10,000, because a 50,000 square foot warehouse, you can guess that it's probably going to be 3.5 to 5.5 million, and you wouldn't know that if you're just starting out, but you should know that it's going to be more than $10,000. That it's going to be all those $100 sale records is going to be false. So we just want to go ahead and get those out. So because the property is 50,000 square feet that we're trying to value, I always put a range on this. So on the heated square feet, and I usually like to do, say if it's 50,000, I'll go from 30,000 to say 75,000. And that gives us a good range, and 50 would be about the median. So we can see that, hey, let's get a range of properties that are, 30 to 75 that are in the neighborhood of this size and, what they're selling for. So we can then find what our value is. And then year built, I believe ours was built in 1964. Yeah, so it's a little bit older. So we'll say 1950, and we'll go all the way up to probably 2000, just because what we're mainly looking for is the steel construction component. So, in these warehouse buildings, a lot of them are steel construction. The newer ones tend to be concrete, but, built prior to the year 2000, a lot of them would be steel. So that's mainly what we're looking for. Acreage, address, and market. You don't have to fill all of this out. The more you know, the better. And then we will hit search and see what comes back. All right, so we have a variety of properties here. And what you do once you have the properties, you go in and look at them and make sure they are comparable. So that is the purpose of running comps. You want to find comparable sales. So we'll look at these properties, and we can go in. It takes us to the same page that we did after we clicked on the parcel number for the subject property. And you can see, hey, this was built in 1970. It looks like it's a concrete building, but it's an older building built just 6 years from ours. And it's roughly 75,000 square feet. So we'll keep this one in there. We'll say that's a good comp. So you want to go back and you want to check all of these comps and say, hey, is this a comparable property? So I would continue to go down the list and make sure that, hey, this is a steel construction building. It doesn't include, 20, 30, 50 acres to it. That would throw off the value. So we can see this one. You can also go to Google Street View, but I can tell this is a steel construction building. So we're going to go ahead and say, hey, this is a good comparable sale. Built in 1956. So we will go ahead and keep it on the list. And I would continue to go through the list and then look at these properties and say, hey, these are comparable, these work, and this is a good property that is similar to ours. And then we can take this value and then delineate the price per square foot and then apply it to ours, which we'll do here in a second. So after you have gone through and you have seen that all of the properties are comparable, you are then going to export them into Excel. So once they are in Excel, I like to go ahead and either hide or delete all of the columns that I don't need. So like the PIN number is what we were working off of. So strap, folio, property type, the owner, mailing address. So all of these things can be very useful, especially if you're prospecting. But for this case, we are just trying to look at the property, make sure it's comparable, know the site address, know the date and what it's sold for, so we can get a price per square foot. So like I said, in other scenarios, this would be a great tool to use if you're databasing properties or trying to make a call list or whatever that is, and you will definitely need the owner name and the mailing address to the property. But for this circumstance, we don't need that. We just need the site address, and then we need the date and the sale price, etc. So we will hide all of this. We know it's in Tampa. I like to keep the acreage because some properties come with more acreage than others, and you just want to keep that in mind. Let's see. We like to keep year built because, as I said, some properties that are newer might be more valuable, and we just want to keep that in mind. Assessed value, we're going to take out for now. Total gross area, here we go. And then you can rename these as well as you go along to make them easier for you to remember. And some of them, like, there's no spaces, so you can just clean it up and make it how you see fit. But like I said, the really important things that you need is right here. Oh, and as we see, I don't know how one snuck through, but as I mentioned here exactly, we have a unqualified sale for $100, which this property is 41,000 square feet right here. So we're just going to go ahead and delete this comp. And it's something to look out for when you're finding price per square foot. Vacant and improved, we know these are all improved. So now what I like to do, sale date, we can hide that for now. So I like to arrange these a little bit like this. And then the last but not least and most important column here, we're going to do the price per square foot. So this is a very simple metric, and it is just taking the sale price and then dividing it by the square footage. And it looks like we're all over the board. So this happens sometimes, a lot of times. So I would go back into these comps and really be careful on what you're looking for. So for this $103 sale, I would bet that this is probably an investment sale. So these two would be outliers. So you can see we're like 33, 44, 47, 57. So those are pretty consistent. And then these two seem to be outliers, but this is where you continue to dig and continue to do more work and say, hey, what went on with these sales? Can we find more like it? Maybe we broaden our search horizon to 6 or 7 miles, and maybe we go back another 6 months on the date sold. But whatever it is, I would continue to dig in if there are outliers, because you want to find all good consistent numbers in order to value your property on. So here at the bottom, we are going to do totals and averages. And this is the most important part because I like to do a weighted average. So you can sum those, subtotal them, whatever it may be. And so now we are getting the total of these two sections, the sale price and the price, or the total square footage. And then this is going to give us a weighted price per square foot. So we will say, hey, total out of these 6 comps, it looks like there was $22 million in sale value. So we will do that, and then we will divide it by the total square footage of all the comps we pulled. So this will give us a $65 per square foot number. And these seemed low just from my knowledge of the market. And as you continue to get better and know more about the market, you will know that, hey, that's low, this is high. And I could, kind of tell you what this building was worth before even running the comps, even though it's always good practice and there's always new comps that come out. So you want to stay up to date on the market and what properties are selling for, what properties are leasing for, and also just continue to stay on top of your game, because new transactions happen every day, and that will also move the sale price and lease asking rate if you're trying to advise a client on what the property is worth in today's market, not 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago market. So I would always look at these numbers, look at when they were sold or leased if you're running lease comps, and just advise your client, or if you're looking to buy the property, just know, hey, the market has appreciated, depreciated, what's going on. So in the final step here, I will take the total square footage of our property. And the difference between heated and total square footage, so you'll see gross and heated. So for industrial properties, a lot of the time it's like an overhang. So if there's dock spaces and there's an overhang of the docks, which is like technically outside, that'll be counted in total square footage. But the building of like the 4 walls is going to be the heated area. And there's different classifications for each property type, so just know what's standard in your market and your property type. So we'll take the heated area, and we will go back to our comps, and we will say there was 49,000 square feet at, and then we will take our average, $65 per square foot, and we will say, hey, this property is roughly worth $3.2 million. So from what I know of the market, it seems a little on the low side. And like I said, I would go back and dig into, hey, what are these? Because are these outliers because these are newer transactions, which, the sale date column is in here somewhere. Are these outliers because they're newer transactions? Were they investment sales? Are they just nicer buildings? What was going on here? And I would continue, as I mentioned before, to broaden your horizon, to dig deeper and make sure you are finding the best comparable sales, and also, whatever you're trying to accomplish. So, if you are trying to list a property and get the owner the highest and best price, then you're going to try and find the highest and best comps. And be very careful, because you never want to fudge the numbers. You always want to present real data. And sometimes property owners think their property is worth more than it actually is. And this is a great tool to kind of bring them down to reality and say, hey, here's what the market is saying. And I think this stands true for everything you do in commercial real estate, whether you are buying a property and working with an unrealistic seller, or an unrealistic buyer that's trying to buy your property, buy a property for say $50 a square foot when it's worth 80. So bringing data to the table is always a good decision during negotiations, because it's hard to argue with. You can't argue with qualified sales and property records. So hopefully this was helpful to you, whether you are a broker, an investor, an aspiring investor. You can use these tools in order to get better at commercial real estate and just be better at your job. Like I said, whether you're an analyst or you're a property manager, this is a great way and a great tool to use that is always going to be free, searching county property data that will help you understand the commercial real estate in your market better. So hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. If you didn't, then don't. But either way, leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to hear next time.